This week in Georgia, Laken Riley's alleged killer pleads not guilty in his trial. Georgia says goodbye to 3 species as they go extinct. Does anyone care? And Ashley Henson wins the Republican primary for sheriff in Paulding County. And our last story of the day, very sad. U.S. Representative Tony Gonzalez prevails in a primary runoff over gun influencer Brandon Herrera. What does this mean? Will more YouTubers get into politics? And a lot more. So stay tuned. All right, our first headline comes from AOI. It says, Laken Riley family cries in court as murder suspect pleads not guilty to fatal beating on Georgia college student. So he pleads not guilty. I guess surprising. He might have been able to get away with a better deal. I don't know what his lawyer's strategy is. I guess there's not a whole lot to say about this. But I'm sure we all know who Laken Riley was. She was a college girl who got basically murdered by an illegal immigrant. This caused a lot of people to basically say we need to shut down the border. More murders like this are going to happen. I think Brian Kemp said something about Biden being responsible, which I don't quite think is fair. He wasn't directly responsible, I don't think, but some of his action, he could have prevented it, I think, or at least he could have had a good chance at preventing it if we had kept some of the Trump-era policies in place. So, super sad. Laken Riley's family lives sort of in my town, so this was pretty sad for, the whole Georgia community, really, and a pretty awful thing to do, especially because I don't believe we know a motive for this killing. He might have just done it to be awful, which some people, do that stuff, and that's terrible. Another thing is he was arrested a bunch of times. He should have been deported. We're just really lax on immigration in this country, and that has to stop, or more stuff like this is going to continue to happen. This guy should have been deported after he committed his first crime. He committed a bunch. His brother committed a bunch also. But according to the MPI, Migration Policy Institute, which I assume is a good source, looks pretty solid. It looks like there are about 339,000 illegal immigrants in the state of Georgia, or as they put it, unauthorized population. I don't know if there's a difference. I would guess not, though. Looks like 163,000 of those people, or 48%, are from Mexico, and 37,000 are from Guatemala. So it does look like most of these people are from the Central American area, which is kind of interesting. Not all states have that same demographic. A lot of states have more South American influence, so kind of cool. Nearly half of them say that they speak English not well or not at all, and 23% after that say they speak English well, for whatever that means. The levels are speaks only English, speaks it very well, and well, not well / not at all. So that is a problem. They're not integrating into our society, which is kind of a bad thing. That's really the difference between immigration now and immigration when our country was, being built by immigrants, when my great-grandparents immigrated and all that. It looks like about 30% of them are not in the labor force. It looks like about 67% of them are employed, and 3% of them are unemployed. I'm not sure what the difference between unemployed and not in the labor force are. So, yeah, I don't know about that. Looks like a bunch of them are in school too. This is just so odd to me that, we just give them free schooling and stuff. It seems like they're, foreigners who came into our country illegally. Why are they getting benefits off our tax dollars? But I'm sure you've heard that 1,000 times. Not such a hot take. right, our next headline. 3 endangered species tied to Georgia are now extinct, Fed says. And this comes from unexplainedmysteries.com. Sounds super sketchy, but this was also, I looked up other sources and they all say basically the same thing. I just like the way that this one says it particularly well. So it says, Batchman's warbler, the southern acorn shell and upland comb shell. Not long ago, these creatures called the rivers of Georgia and the skies above them home, but now the federal government has confirmed a grim fact that scientists had long suspected. The songbird and 2 species of freshwater mussels will never be seen again. All right, so why should you care about this? Because I sure don't. Who cares? 2 mussels are gone and a warbler. And I did a little more research into this because I thought it was kind of interesting. Turns out the mussels were seen like once in the 70s, and then the warbler has been seen once or twice. So they haven't been seen in quite some time, which is why it says a long suspected fact that they had gone extinct. I don't particularly care about the fact that we lost these species, but it is sad, a certain finality to it, and it does show that we do need to continue to preserve the environment. A lot of Republicans and conservatives really are kind of anti-preserving the environment. I don't know why that has to be seen as a liberal thing. I really like the environment. I like our national parks. I like going outside. I like the wilderness. I think we should preserve a lot of that, as much of it as we possibly can, because I think that's pretty awesome. I think we should also preserve the species in it, even if it's just some goofy mussel or a warbler. Alrighty, I think this is the most interesting story of the day, so it's probably the title, but it says, U.S. Representative Tony Gonzalez prevails in primary runoff over gun influencer Brandon Herrera. So, if you didn't know, there's this gun influencer, Brandon Herrera. He has an awesome YouTube channel. Please check him out. I like to help out the smaller YouTube channels. Awesome guy. And he ran for representative for one of the districts in Texas against a rhino, basically a liberal, Tony Gonzalez, complete clown against gun rights. The 23rd Congressional District of Texas has the longest border of any district with Mexico, which means huge amounts of illegal immigration. Tony Gonzalez, as I understand it, was not doing much to stop that illegal immigration. And so for what we haven't really seen all that much, a YouTuber, especially like a big kind of memed YouTuber, went up against a real politician and lost by about 400 votes in the Republican primary. It'll go Republican. So basically Tony Gonzalez is going to be the representative for that district again, the 23rd District of Texas. So I think this is kind of interesting, and I think we're going to see a lot more of it. There's been a history of movie stars becoming political. Best example is probably Donald Trump at this point, but also Ronald Reagan. There were a number of different movie stars and influencers of the old days who became politicians and did quite well, really. And now we don't have movie stars as much. And I know we still do, but the younger generation's movie stars are the YouTubers. And so I think we'll see a lot more of this, and I'm very sad that Brandon Herrera didn't win. I would have really loved to see him beat out Tony Gonzalez on that race, and he really did incredibly well, considering the difference in funding between the two of them. In comparison, Brandon Herrera raised $1.3 million, and Tony Gonzalez raised $4.5 million, and the difference in votes was 400. So strong showing by Herrera. So again, we're going to skip our story on Atlanta because it turns out it's the most boring place on earth. Like, I'm sorry, guys. It's horribly boring. It's all about that silly water main explosion, which I know it's a big deal, okay? I was in Atlanta today. It's a big deal. But you guys don't care, and I don't really care, so we're not going to talk about it. Instead, we're going to talk about Paulding County and a race that went on there. And it's kind of a relevant race for our Paulding people. Everyone else leave, or you can decide to stay. Local politics are kind of interesting. But it was the race for sheriff in Paulding County. And I didn't know a lot about it. I just saw a whole lot of yard signs, and you normally don't see that for a sheriff's race. So I did a little research, and it turns out the two main people in the Republican primary are Ashley Henson and Chad Hunton. Chad Hunton appears to be the incumbent. Both of them have basically served on Paulding or state police forces for a whole lot of their lives. Both of them have been in like SWAT teams. Really cool guys, it sounds like. And they recently had their primary, so Republican primary, of course, and considering how red Paulding is, the Democrats not going to stand a chance, so the Republican Party is really just the race for sheriff. And Ashley Henson was actually able to win against the incumbent, Chad Hunton. I don't really know why that happened. Typically, the incumbent sweeps everything. So if any of you guys know what Chad Hunton did, or maybe just Ashley Henson was a better speaker or better in some way, I don't really know. That's kind of interesting. Congratulations to Ashley Henson for winning the sheriff's office, more or less. All right, y'all, that was the end of the episode. Hope you enjoyed. If you have a story that you would like me to cover, please send it in. Anything interesting that happened in Georgia. I can also do statewide stuff, give my opinion on whatever, if you want my opinion. I don't know. We won't have a fun episode this week. Unfortunately, this is all you're going to get, although I'll try to make it as soon as I possibly can. The fun episode. I think it's going to be ranking red pill YouTubers on a tier list, or commentators, YouTubers, whatever. It's going to be pretty good, I promise. So stay tuned, and thank you guys so much for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, I have a Spotify. I have a YouTube where you can see my face, which is pretty cool. So thank y'all for watching. Talking about it, funny talking, geography.